What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. This week, we're going to talk about something that is very common to all of us, and it is, well, I guess maybe not the latter part, but it's gaining confidence through doing things that you suck at. So many of us are very familiar with doing things that we suck at least for a short stint of time. But what a lot of people don't realize, or maybe just don't have that foresight, that if you do it long enough, you're going to get a little bit better and you're going to gain confidence in that realm. I talk a lot about this with my clients, in terms of fitness. There are a lot of areas of opportunity that we can discuss, in very practical ways. If you've never been a runner, the only way to improve on your running is to run. If you've never completed a push-up or held a 60-second plank, the only way to do that is by putting yourself in a position to fail it a little bit, be really, really bad at them before you can be competent, and then eventually be pretty good at it, and develop some confidence with it. But Brett and I wanted to talk about, kind of practical examples that we have done this just in our lives, because I think that it's a skill for sure, just having that grit to continue doing something that you're really bad at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like people go through evolutions of realizing things that they're bad at in life, and based on what phase of life you're in. So like, I look back at my childhood, and so much of my childhood at least was revolving around like physical activity. And so I relate to my past thinking that I lacked confidence if I didn't feel like I was going to be able to compete physically, with the people that were older than me, or people that I, thought was a challenger, so to speak. Would you agree with that whenever you were younger, because you were an athlete?
Yeah, I think definitely. And just, well, I guess when we were younger, we were put into positions to highlight the successes we had, and both of us were athletes. We were both pretty good in academics, but when you're an adult, it really exposes the areas of opportunity, those weaknesses we have, because you're put into a position where it's kind of sink or swim,
Mm-hmm.
like whether it's your health and it's your fitness and your nutrition that's really lacking, that you need to go through that spurt where, man, this sucks that I'm not doing very well, or it's something with your job, it's a proficiency at work or in school that it's kind of make or break. So I think that when we're younger, we can kind of have those blind spots to our weaknesses and just really hone in on the things that we're good at. And I think that our surrounding, our peers and our parents and teachers, they kind of foster that, because you want to be successful and they want you to be successful. So I don't think that we necessarily lean into the weaknesses or lean into those opportunities to be uncomfortable and to suck at something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like hit full force in adulthood, or at least it had been for me.
Right. Because you're able to dodge all those things whenever you're younger, because you lean into the things that you're great at, and really you don't have to expose yourself to those things that you're not so great at until life comes at you and you're no longer able to just play high school sports or play college sports, or even if you went on the professional level, like whenever that career ends and it's like, now what? Now I have to face those fears that I've been avoiding all this time.
Yeah, and I think that like when you're younger, if you suck at sports, but you have to get a gym or weights credit to graduate, like that's kind of known. You go through it, but you know that there's an end destination, that, okay, I got to make it here. If you have no artistic bone in your body, you're not creative whatsoever, but you have to get a fine arts credit. Like, all right, you have to be in choir for one semester. You have to learn the recorder for a couple months, and then you're done. But those skills that are sink or swim, those skills that are going to be formed in adulthood that you really have to cultivate, they're ones that you can't put a deadline on. They're ones that you can't expect to kind of run the clock out on, because you need them. Like I said, like whether it's your physical fitness and it's your health that we're talking about, the clock you want to run out there is not one that you're wanting to speed up. Because it's your lifespan, your health span. And then if it's in terms of your job, you're obviously going to want to, if you're ambitious at all, if you're wanting to put yourself and your family in a position to succeed and be, financially free, or just have a little bit more peace of mind, then you have to round out your corners there and identify those gaps in your game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to think about the way that different people went throughout like their upbringing, being the education system, and what they were involved in and what they were not involved in. Because you and I were very involved in sports, whereas somebody else may have not been involved at all in sports, and they may have been they may have been in theater, they may have been in on a debate team. They like all of those things, go back to your roots. And you, even in sports, you're going to develop so many great skills that you may not necessarily see the fruits of until down the line, because you're going to get, a lot of confidence, and you're going to learn grit. You're going to learn how to be a team player, selflessness, because in team sports, those are the things that you start to learn. But whenever I look back and I think, well, I went to a small school, so most people, well, a lot of people, I should say, not most, played sports. Even if you weren't a starter, you were on the team. And whereas if you went to a big school, there were a lot more different opportunities. So you may have had the opportunity, like I said previously, to go be on a debate team. We didn't even have a debate team.
I just think the sample size of high school is so small that it's kind of like, it's not a great example for it.
No, I would agree. I would agree.
4 years in high school is such a blink on the radar.
But I'm talking about going back in phases of our life and like what you start getting confident at an early level. Because if I had been on like a public speaking team, something of that nature at that time of my life, I'm starting to think about things that I have weaknesses in now, or areas of opportunity. And I would say that, I can public speak. It's still like, it's something that I have to continue to get better at, because I don't have that many opportunities at this phase of my life to where I've done it a lot. But that is something that I still need to build confidence in through doing it, because I'm not great at it, but I can do it. But if I had been doing it previously, like I had been playing sports in high school, that skill may have been honed more over time. See where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it's a matter of repetition. I definitely think that that's the one thing. When the pieces are put in place, it's kind of cool to think about this. I was talking about it earlier today. Just understanding that the process is going to yield the progress. If you have undeviating loyalty to the process, then you don't have to worry about the pounds coming off. You don't have to worry about getting that promotion. You don't have to worry about whatever fruits of your labor that you're toiling over day in and day out, because the process is there, and you just have to have faith that what you're doing is going to put it to make that come to fruition. But people are just looking for that instant gratification so often that they don't understand the time aspect, that you're putting in the work and it's already happened. Like, now it's just a matter of waiting out the clock and continuing to do that. It's a matter of continuing to pay your dues and just have that faith, which I think that the faith aspect of developing that confidence and getting where you want to go, whether it's a specific goal or just a feeling of like confident in public speaking or anything like that. I think that people are just so quick to be uncomfortable and want to quit, and just for fear of, I definitely think it's more fear of judgment and fear of looking stupid than it is actually failing.
Public perception.
Yeah, because if I was trying to do something here and I knew for a fact that no one would ever watch me fail, then I would have no fear to try something new. I would have no fear to fall on my face because no one saw it. Mm-hmm. But the scariest thing is someone else seeing you screw up and then judging you. And I think that there's that period when you start something and, man, it sucks. You're not good at it because you've never done anything before. I always put it to the example of, like, if you expected your kid to walk on the first try, or if you got mad and just told them to quit when they didn't pull it off on the second try of standing up, then everyone would be crawling. Mm-hmm. But we as adults are just so terrified of being and looking stupid by our peers or some random stranger on the internet that we don't have the fortitude to suck at something long enough to be good at it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's bred in society at some point? Like, to be scared of public perception? Like, is that something that you learn is a societal norm at some point in your childhood, like where it's no longer okay to reach out and try to do something new?
I think so. And as you're asking that, I'm trying to figure out like how old I was when I first started becoming like conscious of like feeling stupid or looking stupid or.
Right. Because there's a certain point in time in your childhood, like where you could give, two shits about what somebody thinks. Like there's no perception. It's like the innocence of a child walking around, buck naked. Like they don't care because they don't have a perception of it being something that you're not supposed to do. So when does the light come on? Is there some sort of, mental click that happens whenever, you become of a certain age and you realize, wait a second, everybody else has clothes on. Why don't I have clothes on?
I think it has to be like your first instance or one of your early experiences with someone being ridiculed, because then you're seeing an example of that, like someone being ostracized by an in-group. Mm-hmm. And you're just, I think innately humans want to be part of a group and we want to be accepted and be mm-hmm. in that collection, that it's something where I think that it has to be your first experience of seeing someone be ridiculed or someone being judged or bullied.
Right, because then you associate the fear of being made fun of with doing something new, mm-hmm. something unfamiliar. Yeah, which is sad because that stops so many people in their tracks from ever doing anything outside the box.
Yeah.
Just for fear of being made fun of or for fear of just public shame.
And it really makes sense when you watch documentaries and you read biographies and things of people that have done truly great things, revolutionary things. They always are described as like outcasts or people that just didn't fit into the mold, or they weren't accepted into the popular crowd, because a lot of those people they don't have that fear of being ridiculed, or they don't register that judgment, or it doesn't weigh as heavily on them. So they do branch out and they try things new, and that's what makes revolutionary discoveries and things. It's really neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of why I was circling back to like the evolution of how people become who they are. I was going all the way back to just your upbringing and what you get exposed to at a young age. So to me, I think back personally, like I said, to athletics and not participating in other stuff. I wasn't participating in public speaking. I wasn't participating in theater. I wasn't putting myself in situations where I felt uncomfortable. Like I felt comfortable playing sports, and therefore, I didn't get thrust into an uncomfortable situation until later in my life. So that's whenever I had to learn how to do some more. I had to learn new soft skills, people skills.
Mm-hmm. And this may be a touchy question because we obviously don't have children, but do you think that obviously our parents want us to be involved in things that we're going to excel at, and naturally I think all parents do. Do you think that parents do a disservice to their kids by putting them in things that they are more inclined to excel at? I just said excel.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, parents don't want to see their kids fail.
Yeah, I mean, why would they?
Right. I mean, naturally, you want your kid to succeed and you want them to gain confidence. Like, kids have to go through trial and error. Like, they have to, see failure and learn how to overcome it. But that happens no matter what. So you want to at least try to set them up for success if possible. So if they have a natural talent for tennis, then, you're going to push them toward playing tennis.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you need to shove your kids into something they suck at to build character.
Right,
push
right.
them in the pool.
No, I'm just thinking, that's just kind of human nature, though. So
yeah, naturally, you want someone that you care about to do something that they're good at,
right?
And that that brings them self-esteem because they're good at it, and because they're good at it, they have self-esteem. I think that it's kind of a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm. So, to answer your question, I think that parents do probably inhibit their kids' ability to, develop some grit, develop some an extra layer of confidence that they could potentially gain if they were exposed to something that they weren't good at and you made them do it anyway.
Do you think grit is a skill or a trait? Do you think it's a trait that people are born with?
A skill.
Some people have more grit than others.
Skill. 100% a skill. Yeah.
Do you think some people are born with more grit?
No.
You don't?
No, I think that's a nurture thing. Yeah, I think that goes back to roots, and not to say that you can't develop that later in life, but I think that people lean into what their nurture aspect of life is. And if you lean into being soft and a victim of the circumstance, no matter what it is in your life, then you're not going to develop that skill.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I do think, I think a lot of times grit is formed out of obligation. I think about like my mom. I think my mom is incredibly gritty. I always talk about my dad with his fitness journey and losing all the weight and stuff, but my mom doesn't get nearly enough credit for just how incredible she is. My parents got pregnant when they were 17. They were in high school, and they're still married, 36 years later, which is a very atypical teenage pregnancy story. My mom had 4 kids and worked and put herself through multiple degrees. Now she is just a few hours away from a doctorate. She's an elementary principal. And she did that all while raising 4 kids. And we had foster kids in and out of the home all the time. And like, she's a badass. She's a hard ass. She's incredibly gritty. And I think that had she not been in those situation or in that circumstance, before that, she spent like a year in a brace because she had terrible spinal surgery. She has her spine fused. I think that grit is formed out of obligation sometimes. Like, it's a sink or swim thing.
That's very true. Yeah. What life throws at you, and basically, are you going to succeed or are you not?
Yeah.
And the choice is yours.
Yeah, I was just curious what your thoughts were there. But just, I think that definitely seeing her as a model has made me grittier. Because I haven't had nearly the adversity that she had. And I'm like, damn, if she can do that, the least I can do is show up and work as hard as I could.
Mm-hmm. So it would be fair to say then that from what you just said, that was a nurture thing. You witnessed it, and therefore, that kind of bled into you.
Yeah. We could go into levels of grit between me and my siblings, but it's just kind of interesting, things like that. And it's also different for each. I think there are realms of grit,
mm-hmm.
Realms of mental fortitude, but I think it's really interesting. One thing that I was thinking about before we started recording this, just a practical example outside of fitness, because I use that as enough examples, but something that I have really had to lean into that period of, man, this sucks and I'm not very good at it. I am so uncomfortable doing it. It's just giving honest feedback, giving constructive criticism, and having those hard conversations, because managing people is by far the hardest thing that I have ever done when it comes to leadership and owning my own business and pretty much anything. Just managing people is so difficult. And when you do it at a larger scale, and as we continue to grow, it becomes more difficult, because you also have to manage not just the situation, but understand that there's a completely different human being on the other side that's bringing a lot of different emotions and baggage into that conversation. But I have to separate myself from that and just state the facts, because one thing that someone had told me once is just clear is kind. When you're clear and you're honest and you're giving that feedback and you're doing it from a place of wanting them to be better, then it's kind. Then it has well intent, or like it's well intending, and obviously delivery matters there, but that's something that I have had to kind of flex that muscle, and I'm still working on. But at the top of this calendar year, I had talked to my team. We were on our meeting, and I was like, this is something that I'm really going to lean into. It's something that I really want to work on as a leader. So I need your guys' feedback as well, but be prepared for me to be clear and honest. And I'm going to tell you my expectations and when there are gaps there, because I want us to succeed and I want you to succeed. I would be doing us all a disservice if I'm, just sugarcoating all of it. But man, that's hard. That's something that I'm slowly but surely gaining confidence in through reps. And obviously you don't want to have to be put in those positions to complete those reps. But each time I'm doing it, I feel a little bit more self-assured, and I feel a little bit more confident in the next interaction and the way that I can handle those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you hit on that on a couple different levels. So there's like an employee aspect of it where you are making sure that you're directing and guiding your team by being clear, with what the expectations are. And then there's also whenever you have to be clear with a client, because you're also doing them a disservice if you're sugarcoating the answer and you're basically creating a workaround, and hiding the fact that they need to be making different, making adjustments in order to get to the desired goal.
Yeah. And it's fun being the fun coach or advisor, trainer, whatever you want to call it. It's fun being that person that gets to cheer them on. It really is, because then they're excited. And we talked in an earlier episode about how enthusiasm is infectious. And when you pour energy into someone else, then it gets them even more energized and they're going to pour it back. So of course that I want to be that cheerleader and I want to clap for them. But like you said, I'm not doing them any favors, and I'm really not helping them earn more of that praise that they want at the end of the day, if I'm not telling them the complete truth, if I'm not being honest about the route that we need to go. And that's just kind of encompassing of all of those hard conversations that I have to work on continually, because it is an area of opportunity for me. It's so fun to be the nice guy. It's fun to be the good cop. Nobody wants to be the bad cop, but in order to get where you want to go, you have to do things you don't want to do all the time. Yeah. And that's just part of sucking at something in order to gain confidence in it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people have to be willing to hear the bad news, be willing to hear the criticism. And it's not necessarily to bring it. Well, it's never, intended to bring somebody down. It's intended to bring them back up, because if you don't give them a corrective action, a way to fix the problem, a way to course correct, then they're just going to proceed down the path that they're going down. And they're going to go farther and farther down that path when they should be headed down this path.
Yeah. And when they continue to slip, then
they got to track.
And they've been, this whole time you've been clapping for them, they're going to turn around and be pissed off at you.
Exactly.
And rightfully so, because they put their faith in and their trust in you. And if you're not strong enough or credible enough to stand firm in what needs to happen, then you absolutely deserve the blame there. Because when someone comes to you and they put their faith in your hands and they ask you to help guide them, and then you just blindly clap for everything they do without giving them the feedback to apply, then that is your fault. Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the hardest things about an entrepreneurial role is there's nobody there to tell you if you're making the right decisions. You just have to learn along the way what works and what doesn't, because there's no coach, there's nobody above you. It's you, and then there's your team, and you are the captain of the ship. And if you don't guide everyone in the correct direction, then everybody else is going to succumb to the faults that you made. Everybody else is 100% dependent upon where you guide the ship. And that can be super hard, especially in times whenever you have to deliver a bad message, what nobody wants to hear. And that's one of the aspects of entrepreneurship that a lot of people aren't cut out for. Like, people, they perceive entrepreneurship as this rocket ship to the effing moon. I mean, it's, they think it is this sleek, sexy thing, and they don't want to see it for what it really is behind the scenes, because there's a lot of shitty stuff too. Yeah. I mean, not to say that it's all bad by any means. I mean, it's such a unique thing in itself. It's unlike anything because it's all on you, and your particular business is always unique to itself. There's always nuances to a business where it's not exactly like another one, even if it's in the same field, and you have your own unique employees involved. There's just so many aspects to it, and I think that gets oftentimes overlooked.
Yeah, there's a lot of glamour in working for yourself and working from home and creating your own schedule and being a boss lady or whatever. All of the hashtags that are floating around on Instagram all the time. But yeah, it's a continual process of trial and error. And okay, this did not work. We pivot. This worked. Let's pour into that. And just, you also have to be vulnerable and pretty authentic. I mean, uncompromisingly authentic about, hey, we screwed up. We're going to screw up again, but we are going to grow. Like, in investing in us and again, putting your faith in us is kind of just extending that olive branch to understand that we're going to grow together and we're going to make these mistakes, but know that I'm going to right the ship when they happen. Yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever done. I wouldn't want to do anything else. 'Cause it's just, what I do is extremely rewarding, but from day to day, it's definitely not sunshine and rainbows. It's not as glamorous as I think entrepreneurship sometimes is glossed over on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just thinking here of a metaphor, because it's so hard to describe what all it entails. And I'm saying this from almost a secondhand perspective, because I've learned entrepreneurship secondhand somewhat.
I think that developing confidence in your entrepreneurial skills comes through, just in a broad scope. Obviously, we can say you're doing all of these little things that you suck at in order to gain confidence in these little minute skills, but as a broad overarching topic, being an entrepreneur, you have to suck at it for a long time before you can be good at it. You have to try a lot of things that may not work before you can be good at it. And it's also it's the flywheel effect often, where you're pushing and pushing and pushing, and really it doesn't feel like you're creating any momentum, but eventually the ball starts rolling, or the wheel starts rolling, and you're not pushing any harder than you were before. It's just all that compound effort that accumulated up until that point. But up until that point, you don't know if it's going to work or not. So then you're just pushing against a wall, and you've got a hope and a prayer. So, and it's a testament to you, just because you are so patient with the whole process, because it's very trying. And you get the brunt of a lot of my emotions and my trial and errors, a lot more errors than successes. You see it all.
I'll throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's not for everybody, that's for sure. But it goes to show, back to the original topic, that you build confidence doing things that you suck at. And nobody starts something and they're just excellent at it right out of the box. I mean, there's certain skill sets that you have that, somebody's going to be predisposed to being better at than others. But all in all, you have to build those skills over time through repetition.
I do think that there's something really exciting about those early stages when you are really bad at something, when you're coming up with losses and you have that big goal. Because when you're excellent at something, I remember listening to the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, where Tim Grover was talking about, if we can just improve him by 0.1%, like he was already so elite that if that incremental difference, like that's kind of your standard deviation of progress when you're at that point. But when you're just starting out, there's so much room to improve, and there are so many strides and milestones that you can celebrate along the way. So you have a lot of opportunity to get excited and to get energized. Whereas if you're an operator already and you are producing at a high level, then you don't have those feedbacks, those wins that you can hit, and the milestones to kind of give you encouragement of say, okay, I am making progress all the time. But if you're just starting out and you're working out for the first time 5 days in a row, that's a win. If you are learning a new language and you practice 3 days in a row, that's a win. But if you're already pretty competent at the skill, it's harder to scratch together those just those merits to celebrate and to hang on to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think that some of the most common things that people are scared of doing that they could get a lot better at through repetition?
I think talking to people in person, approaching, just having a conversation in person. I think that's a huge one. People are extremely awkward.
And also just an amazing life skill.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to translate not only to your professional life, but it's going to help you
your personal life,
find friends and a partner. Yeah. I think talking to people is a huge one that people are terrified at sucking at, because the biggest fear is to look stupid in front of someone else. Whereas if you're trying to get better at pull-ups, you can practice pull-ups by yourself and no one really sees you fail. But there is an eyewitness on the receiving end of that conversation that is going to be the recipient of if you suck at this. And more often than not, I hope this is true, that humanity is a little bit kinder than our brains try to think or try to convince us of. More often than not, I feel that the person on the other end of that is not going to judge you or, ridicule you. I don't know. Maybe they'll make a joke when you leave, but chances are they're not going to say it to your face. But I think that that's certainly the biggest one, the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good point too. Yeah, I mean, not just friends, not just on a professional level, but also finding a spouse. If you're younger and that's a worry of yours, then get better at talking to people. And the only way to get better at it is to work at it, have conversations with people.
Yeah, and then I also think another one that, like, maybe it's just because that's my realm, but people are scared to suck and to fail when it comes to fitness. So they don't try. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an intimidating thing for sure. Because what you see is the social media aspect. You see the people that are tossing around tons of weight, and you see them look super competent doing it. And it's intimidating because you don't want to be the one that, the stereotype is the person that's scared to go into the gym. Because they don't want to be the one who shows up and doesn't know what to do. If they show up and they literally don't know what to do, then they just don't want to go at all, which is sad, because people, generally speaking, I know there's going to be assholes, but generally speaking, if you go to a gym, I guarantee 80% of the people in there would be like, they would love to help you. They would show you how to do a movement if you ask them to do it.
And if they don't, send them my way. I just want to have a talk.
Just send them to LJW.
That's right. I'll whoop their ass.
It's a lot more inclusive environment than what you would expect, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it's perception and the intimidation factor. You can't get over that in your head in order to find out, because we are so wrapped up in, my God, what if someone makes fun of us? What if we end up in a viral gym video?
And if you're scared of going to a gym, join Lexi J Wellness, and you're going to get super competent. You're going to get super strong, super fit.
Oh, a shameless plug.
And you're going to get to work out with the hot ass.
Thank you.
Just saying.
Do you have any closing remarks?
We all suck at stuff. Just don't let that hold you back from doing what you want to do and finding new things to get better at. If you have a dream, there's nobody that ever started at pursuing their dream that didn't suck at it to begin with.
And I will say that your identity is rooted in the evidence that you present it. So if you continually stack undeniable evidence, undeniable proof that you're competent in this realm, that you do this continually, I don't care if you've never ran a day in your life, but if you start running one day and you just don't stop as in like not never stop running, but if you run 1 mile today, you run 1 mile tomorrow, and you just keep that up for a while, your identity is going to see you as a runner because you have a lot of proof to look back on. But if you try something, you suck at it, and you never do it again, then of course that's not going to be tied to your identity. Whether it's, I'm a confident speaker, I'm an outgoing person, I am a fun person to be invited at parties, or I'm funny, I'm fill in the blank here. If you don't put yourself into a position to stack evidence, to kind of pull from the file cabinet, your brain is always looking for things to prove yourself right, to prove that hypothesis that you're preaching to yourself. If you have no history of it, no background that you can pull from the file, then of course you're never going to relate to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you tell yourself that you are something, then you're going to begin to identify as that thing.
Yeah. And it's not so much, telling yourself is, I think, getting your foot in the door, but then you have to act.
Right. There's action that has to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the key in anything in life.
You can affirmation your way, or affirmation your face. Affirmation until you're blue in the face. But if the actions don't align, then you're lying.
For sure. But the mentality has to be there to begin with in order to take that first step forward.
Yeah, and I'm not against affirmations or anything like that. I talk to myself all the time.
No, yeah, 100%.
But yeah, if you...
It's like reading all the self-help books and never applying anything.
Yeah, the application has to be there. The action has to be there.
Yeah, don't be the one who just reads all the self-help books and never actually applies yourself or any of those things that you're learning in those books to life, because ultimately those self-help books are intended to help you do things, not just learn about how you can do those things. It's supposed to light a fire in your ass in order to force the action and teach you how to be successful.
So what I'm currently going through that period, embracing the suck, is just having those hard conversations, giving honest, clear feedback, knowing that I'm doing it in their best interest. And eventually I'm going to be extremely confident doing it. I am more confident than I was, but less confident than I want to be. What are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm working on getting a lot better at a podcast.
Yeah, we're in the period of, we kind of suck at it right now.
Yeah. Chipping away. Yeah. I have to be a little less self-conscious and build some confidence in just the way that I speak, because my voice isn't how, imagine this is the same for everybody. There's probably not a whole lot of people who just love their voice, but most people, whenever
Morgan Freeman,
he's got to love his voice, right? But like how if you don't record yourself often, like you're used to it, I would say by now, at least semi used to it. Whenever you hear your voice, you're like, that's not what I sound like.
I still, if you play my Instagram story out loud, I still ask you to shut it off though, don't I? I record myself all the time, but I don't want to hear it. Yeah. I don't watch my videos back. I won't listen to the podcast back.
Yeah. So the podcast is an area of opportunity for me where through repetition, I'm going to build confidence, but it is a very difficult thing for me to listen to myself. I force myself to do it because I watch myself like game film, listen to myself like game film. But yeah, I wish my voice was different, but it's not. I can't do anything about that.
I like your voice.
Yeah. I would change it if I could.
What would you change it? Could you imitate right now what you want it to sound like?
I just wish it was deeper, had a more rich tone, because it's something that would carry. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
my voice
I'm
is actually
kind of not like that.
No, my voice is actually kind of scratchy today because I had like 2-hour meetings at work, and I usually am not talking that much during the day, so my voice is a little scratchy. My throat hurts a little bit from talking so much.
All right, well, you're going to continue watching game film, getting better. I'm extremely curious, just for the audience, what you are diving into right now. What are you embracing the suck at in order to get more confident in? I want to hear some feedback, what you guys are diving into, how we can support you along the way. Cause I meant it when I said it. I love being that cheerleader. I love being the hype girl, but if you also need a little kick in the ass, that's what we can scratch each other's backs here. Cause I need more repetition. Slowly but surely we're getting better with those hard conversations. Yeah.
And we're absolutely accepting, Q&A. So if you guys have any particular questions or particular topics that you'd like us to discuss, make sure and send them our way. I haven't actually divulged it yet, but I had Carly make an email address for the podcast, and I thought that might come in handy because some people are shy. They don't want to post stuff online, YouTube comments, whatever the situation is. So if you want to submit any questions to the email, it's pod@lexijwellness.com.
And there you have it. If you guys got anything out of this show, we would love it so much if you shared it with someone. If you share it on social media, tag us and let us know some feedback. But as always, thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you next week.